Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice Podcast. My name is Reed, and we are joined by...
Hi, guys. My name is Leighton. I'm one of the executive producers here on the SA Voice Podcast, and I'm stepping behind the mic again this week to kind of get a little different perspective.
Leighton's been a big help these past few weeks, so we want to thank Leighton for filling in and adding a lot of voice to the Voice Podcast.
There you go.
So what do we have today, Leighton?
So today, kind of more of a serious subject. We're talking with the chaplain, Kathy. She's an awesome lady. And today we're going to delve into the subjects of relationships, safe sex, consent, and overall mental health, about kind of the stigmas that follow relationships, and some of the heavier conversations about why sex is so prevalent among young people. So
yeah. So it's going to be a bit of it's going to be a very interesting conversation today. And do you want to give us some background on Kathy and what she does?
Sure.
For the school?
She's the Kingston Chaplain here. So she her position is just to provide a lot of support. So mentally, a lot of students are struggling when they come to college. They don't really know how to be successful academically, and a huge part of it is socially and also relationship-wise. A lot of people who are coming to school, they're young, they're moving away from home for the first time. They might be living in residence, not all the time, not every case, but it's just a big change for people, and taking that first step and getting in a relationship with somebody is always a big deal, right? So whether it's your first boyfriend, first kiss, whatever it is, it's always a big deal, and it's always good to know that there's somebody in the school that you can talk to about anything like that. So Kathy, the chaplain, it predominates like a religious-based kind of position. But she's not. Exactly. It's for anybody of any faith.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be from a religious background.
No,
it can be
not.
Just completely counseling-based sort of conversation. So,
and you don't even have to come to her, with something heavy. You can just come and tell her something good, right? Tell her something good. Just make a new friend. And Kathy, she's a great lady, and she's made quite a heavy impact, smile-wise and relationship-wise. She makes everybody happier that she just meets. She's one of those people that just brightens everybody's day. So she's been a great help to us here.
Well, that's great. Well, can't wait to get started with her. So
you're gonna see us. We're gonna jump next door for the interview with her, and then we'll jump back here. So let's get to it.
Okay.
Right on.
Well, so Kathy, why don't you start by introducing yourself and tell us what you do here at St. Lawrence?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Kathy Doering, and I'm the chaplain here at St. Lawrence at the moment, just on the Kingston campus. But we're actually chatting about. Actually, I am already working a little bit in Cornwall and Brockville.
Tri-campus.
Unofficially tri-campus
good for you.
A little bit.
That's awesome. So will that involve a bit more traveling in your duties, I guess? Or
Yep,
would it be every day?
Bit. Maybe not every day.
Okay, let's hope
a little
not.
bit.
Especially in the winter, right?
Yes, exactly.
So what brought you here to St. Lawrence?
My husband and I pastor a church, and we've been in Portsmouth for 20 years. And so we've always kind of had our eye on St. Lawrence, and we've always had students in our lives that are here. And then about 5 years ago, I started working at a campus ministry at Queen's, and we just had no presence here at St. Lawrence. And so I was like, that's just not right. We should be here as well. So we found one student who was interested in starting a small group here, and she found a couple friends. And so for about a year and a half, I would come here for one small group. And then I thought, wait a minute, I think there's a chaplain here. I should maybe let her know I'm here and see if I can help in some way, and just let her know, that I'm around and available. And when I met with her eventually, she was essentially working 3 jobs and really stretched, and said, like, do you want my job, basically? And so I was like, okay. And so last fall, so it's been about 3 semesters now that I've completed here in that role.
Nice.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So for those of us who aren't familiar with your role, can you tell us what are some of the duties that you do in your role?
Yeah. So I would say there's sort of 3 hats that I wear. So one is a spiritual coordinator. So we have a lot of international students. So I've had students come to me. They're like, I'm Muslim, I'm Buddhist, I'm Hindu, I'm a Sikh. I'm looking for resources in the community. I'm looking to get support for my faith. For anyone of any faith background that's looking for support in their own denomination or faith group. So that's one hat. My second hat, I would say, is just supporting Christian kids, because that's my personal faith background. Right. And so I think right now we're running about 6 small groups that are, we call them huddle groups, that are kind of about just living intentionally and practicing our faith together as Christians on the campus. And then the third hat that I wear, and I do mentoring and kind of Christian counseling, I would say, through that role in leadership training. And then the third one is just, I'm really passionate about student wellness, helping students thrive and flourish while they're here. And so how can we impact culture? How can we change our environment so that students really feel seen, they really feel like they belong? So that kind of wellness piece is something I'm really, really passionate about. And really it's spiritual resilience. That's answering the question, why am I here? What's the point? Like on the earth and at SLC. And I think often when students move away from home, they start to ask some of those questions, or sometimes they get so distracted, but then there's a crisis, someone gets sick, someone dies, health issues, and then all of a sudden those questions come to the surface and students panic and struggle. And so just to help students kind of navigate their own answers to those questions is something I really am passionate about.
Yeah, that's good. Wonderful. So you don't have to be of a religious faith or denomination to use your services.
Absolutely not. Right. And I would say half who come to me, we talk about mental health, health. Yeah. So emotional health, something I talk to students a lot about. Mental health, physical health sometimes, right? It's all just part of being well.
Right. That's good. So yeah, you're just really supporting students in a way that allows anybody to come and see you with an open door policy, book an appointment, and you're just really someone to talk to that students can be comfortable with.
Yes, and I think the difference between me and counseling, so I do have a counseling background, but with counseling services, the focus generally is short-term crisis management. Okay. And so the model that we use in chaplain services is more relationship. It's building relationship that's fluid, that's ongoing. It's a little less structured than counseling. So I take students out for coffee, or it's about building relationships. And a lot of the research has said, especially with mental health and self-esteem issues, those issues are better worked on in a relationship-rich environment. Right. So to kind of pay somebody to tell you that you have value and worth is different than somebody walking that out with you in a relationship context. Yeah. So anyhow, so that's kind of what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good.
So do you have any a story that about St. Lawrence that you have? And if you don't have one, I guess if you're not able to answer that, what's sort of your favorite thing about helping students? And maybe you can answer both and just guiding them.
Okay. Well, I grew up at St. Lawrence College. My dad worked here when St. Lawrence was still in the basement of LCVI High School, their first year in like 1967.
I did not know that. That's I went to LC, so that's funny.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, that's where St. Lawrence started.
No way.
And then he was here his whole career. That was until like the 90s. And so like I came here and sat on Santa's lap. He was in the business department, and there was these weird machines with a card in them we'd poke holes in. I still don't understand. I just asked
What's
him,
going on
what
there?
were those machines? What were those holes we were poking? I'm not sure. Some kind of card to speak to a computer or something. Anyway, so I really grew up here, and so it's neat to be kind of back.
Absolutely.
In a different role.
What's sort of the difference that you see? Obviously, there's a huge change in the structure of the building, probably.
It's a lot smaller than it was when I was a little girl.
Oh, really? Wow.
Because I was so little.
Right.
So the place felt really big. And actually, that's what I love, having worked at Queen's and here. Queen's is so spread out. I just feel like there's a tight-knitness about St. Lawrence that is really neat. We're all in one building, mostly. And the sense of community, and I think my favorite thing, you didn't really ask me this question, but I'll tell you anyway.
Please do.
My favorite thing about St. Lawrence is every staff member that I personally have met, whether it's you folks working at the front desk in the Student Association, whether it's the CEO of the college or people that are cleaning the floors, people love students. I see a lot of passion for students and care for students, and not a lot of jaded, tired, pulling a paycheck people that work here, and I love that. The culture, I feel like, is really helpful.
It's a helping environment.
It really is.
Yeah. If you were to go back on your first day from when you started here, or if you were to give advice to someone that was starting, what would that advice be?
Starting to work here?
Starting to work here, starting to study here, or just being in this environment?
I guess I would say be yourself. I think we get so self-conscious about how we're coming off and what am I wearing, and I think what we need is more of us to be willing to just be your quirky self and invest in relationships, take a risk, be, your weird self, and I think that gives other people permission to do the same, and then we have a really authentic place to work and study and be.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's sort of like one of the first steps into building a healthy environment, right? Is not building that stinginess.
100%.
Just free flowing conversation, right? So
yeah, exactly. Well, that's great. So one of the main things we'd love to breach today in today's topics, are relationships. We're getting close to Valentine's Day, the big day's coming up. You don't have to be in a relationship to celebrate it. But we were wondering if you could maybe share some of your insights on what are a lot of the issues that some of the younger couples are going through these days. We know that financial stress is a large issue. Being at school away from their hometown and their parents is also stressful. What kind of things are really affecting younger students these days, and what are some of the mechanisms that we can educate them and arm them with to kind of just give them a tip or two as they head into this kind of month?
Yeah, that's a big question. I would say, as far as the first part of your question, what are the issues that I think are facing young people? Well, it's funny, I was just doing some research last week, and in Canada, we are actually, they're calling it a mental health crisis among youth. So I think we're really at an acute stage, and I think this generation are feeling it the most, of just not feeling well in the core of our being. And to me, that we define actually mental health involving that spiritual health piece. So again, spiritual health isn't, do you go to church or synagogue or a mosque? It's, what's the point? How do you answer that question? Why am I here? Who am I? That's spiritual health. And so I think in the context of that crisis, a lot of students feel like life becomes a performance. And so they're coming into relationships with friendships, relationships with their peers or acquaintances, as well as kind of more intimate relationships with a performance mindset. It's exhausting. It's awful. And I think a lot of us, we just need a safe place. Yeah. And that's what I see more than anything. I see these wonderful, wonderful students that come into my office that just have a mountain of pain that's, of course, normal for the things in their lives that have happened, and they just don't feel like they can share it or let it show. And so as soon as someone says, "How are you?" and means it, it comes spilling out, and then they're apologizing because they feel so terrible. But it's like those feelings have to come out to make room for the good stuff. Yeah. And I just think there's not an understanding of that need to get rid of, to unload the stuff. And
there's no sense of making a mistake is a valuable part of life. Right? Like you learn from failure, and it's such an opportunity, but it's not safe to do so. I think there's a judgment culture. There's such a fear of judgment among young adults today and emerging adults that I can't make a mistake. Someone's going to laugh at me. Someone's going to make fun of me. Someone's going to post about it, whatever, that it's almost immobilizing. Right. And so then you try to navigate relationships and intimate relationships in that context. And I think no wonder so many struggle. Yeah. And I think a lot, when it comes to kind of intimate physical relationships, there's, I think, this pressure on students to just jump into a physical relationship first. And, I've had a student recently articulate to me, I feel like if I didn't have sex right away, I was going to be judged. Yeah. It's like, that is nuts.
Well, the social kind of standard, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, is if you're in college, it's kind of assumed that you probably would have lost your virginity. So if you had not, that could be a stressful thing. You feel like it's something that you should just get over with. Yep. It's not sacred. It's just something it's a part of adulthood. Correct. So it's just one of those steps that it's sort of like, and you just have to. And that could be a huge, mental issue for some people.
Absolutely. And I think along with that kind of pressure is just this sense of sorry.
That's okay.
That I think there's a lot of people that come to relationships with different expectations, and I think a lot of people are looking to get their heart needs met in a physical relationship with somebody. And so, one person may be coming just for, this is just a night and this is just going to be fun, and then the other party might be coming with like, I'm looking to be like seen and understood. And I think there's a lot of that happens. And so people get hurt because they're looking to fill a heart need with something that's not able to do that. And that I find can be really damaging.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there might be some obvious differences, but what do you think the difference is over time? What has happened to young people when they step into these relationships? What's sort of the biggest mental health difference, I guess, that you would see?
Yeah, I think people that chronically just feel they have to kind of play that hookup game. It's like it's their view of themselves. Again, it's back to that spiritual resilience and self-actualization that it's like, what am I worth? Like, I'm just not somebody anybody wants to really get to know. Right. I'm just somebody, to just text in the middle of the night for a hookup. And so I think the biggest danger is students come to make judgments on themselves because of how they've been treated. And, if I'm a crystal plate that's worth thousands of dollars and I get used as a frisbee, does that reduce my value? Well, no. Even if I spend a winter in a snowbank, I'm still a crystal plate that deserves to be on display. Maybe a bad illustration.
No,
you get the idea.
Good analogy.
Totally.
No, for sure.
Yeah. Do you see sort of a pattern of what's sort of to blame today of all this? Like, where does this judgment come from? Like,
let's talk about the social media and the
I mean, that's social media is an obvious one, right? I mean, like that we can link. I mean, the biggest change obviously is the fact that we're on our phones and we're in the sense of judgment that we see these people in these perfect lives.
You got it. And we compare our blooper reel to everyone's highlight reel online. I think that is a big danger. And it's not so much what's online, it's what we come to believe about ourselves and the world around us because of it. And it's the judgments, again, that we make that I think are the biggest danger.
Right. Interesting.
Absolutely, and just to kind of touch on that, everybody's highlight reel. I really like that sentence because we don't know what we're seeing if it's true. We're just seeing what people are posting. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know their struggles. So everything that you're dealing with and you're comparing it to these picture perfect people, these models, these superstars on Instagram, or even your friends who only post happy moments, people don't post their struggles, right? There's not enough talk. There's not enough dialogue around these things, especially with younger people. Especially with younger males, there's that stoic kind of energy of you can't open up, you can't be seen as vulnerable, it's not safe, you'll be judged. Why is it that society kind of puts pressure on younger people and younger men, younger boys, males, to be perfect and to be stoic? And what kind of some of the things you might say to a younger gentleman who comes to you and just, like you said, just really needs to open up and has just been kind of kept in boxes because society says, don't cry?
Right. That's such a good question. I have such a heart for young men. I think it's really difficult. I think for young women today, the messaging, at least, is you can be anything. And I think for men, I think it's really difficult. I think it's really difficult for men today. And I think, again, it goes back to finding a safe place, finding a place you can express yourself. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of students don't have that at home. Some do, and I think when you've got parents that can be your cheerleaders or siblings or older mentors or coaches, that can be really, really helpful. But someone who sees you and gets you and can say you're not crazy, you're not broken, because I think the question every kind of teenager and emerging adult are asking is, am I normal? Am I okay? Do I have what it takes? And so to find people that you can actually be seen by, and it's a risk, right? It involves risking, and I think we can do it in calculated ways. So if I had a young guy that came to me that was struggling with some of these kinds of issues, I would say to them, go through your whole phone contact list and think, okay, who are these people that might be safe? Make a list of 5 or 6. Message each one of them and say, can we grab a coffee? Go out for coffee and then drop a nugget, a tiny little nugget, and just say something like, boy, I had a really rough weekend. And see how they respond. If they say, oh boy, wait till you hear about my weekend, or if they say, oh, toughen up, or how about the Lakers, then you know that's not a safe person and cross them off their list. But if they say, whoa, I'm sorry to hear that, like what's going on, maybe risk a little more. And we can actually start to intentionally build a community around us of people who see us, where we can feel like we can be our true, authentic selves. And then that lets us empty out all those negative emotions so that we have room for all the good stuff that we want. And I think the other thing, and I've had several students do this and get really free from it, is limiting the social media. Yeah. I've had some take it off their phones, Instagram or whatever one is really a tricky one that causes stress and anxiety. And boy, it's a tough first week, but a lot of them have really found that helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And to kind of continue on what you said, that's scientifically proven to be an issue. That's and right. To help. And psychologists have done research that removing yourself from social media for up to 14 days a month actually improves your mental health by up to 30%.
Isn't that incredible?
So just getting off there for, let's say maybe you're on Instagram 2 hours throughout the day. Just even halfening that or going on there for half an hour can really improve.
And a lot of phones have those programs where they can shut you down after a certain time, because a lot of students say, I have groups at class that use whatever, there's some things you need to be on for.
Absolutely.
So go on, do your stuff, and then get yourself off.
And that's the hard thing too, is as I'm an advertising student, and so that's a platform that I not only need to use for school, I need to use for my other projects, my extracurriculars outside of school, and so it's something I need to be constantly on, right? Yes. Because it's not even just posting your own content, you need to be interacting with others, and it's sort of like this whole formula in order to, but that's also, that's a stressful
discipline.
thing, right?
It's discipline.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so deciding, okay, what do I need? How much do I need to be on professionally and for school and academically? And then at what point is it too much? And then I think the other piece is, what do we replace that with? Yeah. And face-to-face human time, I think, like I have 3 kids that are 20 to 16. They will not use the telephone. Like, I don't know if you guys, they won't phone anybody. They just hate the phone. And I just think it's a generation that's so much more comfortable through a screen. And so just can you reduce the time with a screen and try and increase your time in somebody's face, I think can be really helpful too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And going back to that question of sort of what's the advice you'd give young males, what's the advice you'd give young females as to the amount of pressure that they're under today? Because I mean, both pressures are very different, or they could be very similar. It doesn't have to be necessarily in those boxes, but you definitely see common trends with both.
Yeah, absolutely. For the young gals that I see, I think it's both, but like you say, it manifests in different ways, but it's the identity issues. It's the who am I? Do I have value beyond my body and beyond just, and can I get a boy's attention or a partner's attention in any other way than just giving my body away on this first date or the second date? Right. And I think it's a whole mindset. It's a whole way of thinking about yourself. And that I feel like is the biggest struggle for girls, is getting them to see, and just because this is the culture, this hookup culture, it doesn't mean that you have to be part of that. Yeah. And just encouraging girls to kind of fight that pressure. And the boys too. In some ways, I think there's almost more pressure on a boy to just want sex all the time, right? Yeah. And sort of break that. But I think the quality relationship that these folks want, it's a great way to weed out the jerks, right? It's like, if that's what you want, then we're not wanting the same things, and that's okay to say that. And then I think the more you do that on the little moments, you take some of your power back. You start to stand up a little straighter, and you start to think, no, I do deserve more than this. And I've seen that happen as well, and it's a beautiful thing to watch. Again, empowering, just growing in health. Yes, empowering. It's beautiful.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One of the things I would like to kind of talk about is safer sex. I don't know if there is such a thing as safer sex. This college, we used to have a huge availability of condoms for people to use. We don't do that anymore. I know that's now done at health services that we do. But other than really educating people around how to be safe, consent, being with somebody that you respect, and just taking your time, other than education, is there really an effective weapon against safe sex? I really don't know. And that's kind of an open-ended question. And I really think that I might even answer my own question here, but I think education is the most powerful tool.
Absolutely.
When it comes to
communication,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Communication, education, and just really realizing, like Kathy said, you don't need to rush into it. And even though there are these pressures and these stigmas, just be yourself and have the confidence to kind of not fall straight to those pressures.
And so what I would say is that the root of all that is that identity. It's that, who am I? How do I deserve to be treated? Do I deserve to be, in a muddy snowbank, or do I deserve to be in a display case, right? What is my value? What is my worth? And I think it gets really messy really quickly, where consent gets blurry when there's alcohol or drugs involved, right? And it gets messy really, really fast. And I think, especially when we're looking to meet needs in the wrong way. We're bringing heart issues to a bar and hoping to get that need met by some physical attention. And I think, I don't know if you guys know about love languages, that we all have different ways that we feel loved. And so physical touch, words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, and gifts. So
and you typically need two of those,
people
right?
often have a top two.
Right.
Yeah, that's really, for me, it's physical touch and words of affirmation. And I think people who are that's their love language is touch, and your tank is feeling empty. It's like, how can you tank yourself up so that you're not in a situation where you're out at a bar and you've had too much to drink and there's a cute somebody and things can get messy really fast. But if we sort of keep our tank full and we understand, okay, this is about this and not about this, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I feel like those are some of the root issues that can prevent some of these messy consent situations, if that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and people would take it personally if they were rejected too, right?
Always.
If they don't see that, they take it as a loss on them. It's like, what did I do? Like, and it's not about that. It's sort of like those oh, don't worry about that. But those things, the two people just didn't click.
Reed, I'm so glad you brought that up. Honestly, this is one of my most frustrating things working with students. So often, the filter is, if something has happened, it's my fault.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't return my text within a certain amount of time, it's because they don't value me. If someone snaps at me, it's about me. And 80% plus of what somebody throws at you in a day, whoever it is, it's not about you at all, and we take it so personally.
Yeah, well, it's almost like human instinct that that's the
Yes.
first thing that we go to, and it's not really about blaming ourselves for thinking that
That's
way.
right.
It's sort of just catching ourselves in that moment of
Yes.
going, whoa, try to put and it's not just putting themselves in their shoes. It's just sort of, and we can't do that, right? Because we have no idea what that person's thinking. Yep. It's timing.
What's their day been like?
Exactly.
And I just see it as a devastating trend where people just carry around so much hurt and based on someone else's bad sleep last night or fight with their parent this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just, and there could be a situation, and it's happened from what I hear in a few cases of, I do really like that person, but I'm in a terrible space myself. And it sounds like, to some people, that sounds like, oh, that's a cliche, or that's a cop out, but it's, and you can't go to those things, right? Like you can't,
right.
and then end up judging that person. So
that's right.
It's just such an immense amount of pressure that we put on ourselves and each other.
Yeah, we've all been there where we don't get that message back, and you start wondering, what did I do to bother them? Am I annoying them? Am I not good enough? And
Absolutely.
then it really just starts that bad cycle all over again. And it's really hard to come out of that place.
And the communication plays into that, right? Because we don't often want to directly ask, or if we do, we don't believe what people say if they say it's not about us, and it just gets
it's messy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess would you say there's any other sort of skews to how young people today view sex as opposed to how we viewed it say 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah, I think we really Leighton, you were talking about the sacredness. You were kind of alluding to the sacredness of sexuality, and I think it's very hard to physically come together with somebody and not be coming together with your spirit and your soul and all of who you are. It's I believe, incredibly powerful. And interestingly, I can hear people arguing against this in my head, as I've been in those conversations lots of times. But if you think about how much you can damage somebody with sex, how damaging it can be, if you think about rape and how that rocks every level of who we are. But yet we don't really acknowledge how powerful sex can be in a positive way,
right?
By connecting on all those levels. So I think it's a fire,
which is what makes that more traumatic, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So sex, I think, is a way bigger force than we understand. It's like a fire. So a fire in a fireplace is great. A fire in a forest, like we've seen in Australia this winter, is devastating. And so it's like, where do you want your fire? How do you want to care for it? Where does it need to be contained? And honoring and acknowledging this is big. This, you know, I guess I'm realizing I'm countercultural to many of our listeners, but I just believe sex is not something that can just be scratching an itch. I just don't think that's how we're wired. I think it goes way deeper. And then when we're surprised that these sort of physical relationships create all kinds of damage, I just think it's not a surprise because of how deeply it impacts us to connect with another person in a sexual way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very profound. Yeah, that's a great insight. And I think, I think society's views on sex is changing. I think the average person, I might be wrong here, but I believe the average person has about 7 sexual partners in their lifetime.
At what age, do you know? I'm just curious.
In their lifetime. So by the time they're...
wow, okay.
Yeah. So, some people have way less, some people have way more. And I think it's so mainstream. Sex is so mainstream. You hear it in everything, you see it on everything, and we've become so accustomed to just talking about it and doing it. And the hookup culture, Tinder it's a $1 billion company. Like, you know what I mean? Sex is everywhere. Sex sells. It's in everywhere.
100%.
It's everywhere. And it's so in our face every single day that I really think goes back to our little mini conversation. It's losing its sanctity, and it's not something that is kind of held to higher morals anymore. And it's definitely different. People having one partner and getting married and staying with that person, those days are extremely, extremely rare now. Most of the people, by the time they leave this college, will have had multiple partners, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just today's reality.
Yeah.
So it's really not these people's fault, in my view. It's society's overall arcing trend of sex is in your face. Here's what it is. You've learned about it. You know what it is. And it's really... Do you guys say, you can answer this, is it not as big a deal as it was 5-10 years ago? And why do you think that is? Why is sex not a big deal anymore?
I think we have access to it in our everyday lives with the internet. I mean, we're seeing it in so many different ways and so many different lights that it's kind of just ingrained in our culture. Yeah. And it's and I think it goes back to that pressure that we're talking about, that guys have is to, I remember when I was in high school, it was sort of viewed as, how many kills do you have? Which is a pretty disturbing, sentence in a lot of different levels, right? Yeah. Because that's just sort of, that's just saying, well, sex doesn't matter. Like, you just keep going and see how many partners. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It's just a number, and it's just degrading to, and it goes to that, right? Like, sex is a huge deal, and it means so much to us to be intimate with somebody. Yeah. And it means so many different things. You can't just define it in one way.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the sad thing is, a lot of students I meet with that are like, what's wrong with me? Because I can't just have a one night stand and be fine with it. Like, and so it's like, you start thinking you're the crazy one when you can't play the hookup game. And that to me is the most devastating part, seeing students that think there's something wrong with them because they're not buying what the culture and society are saying.
And they scare themselves because they think they're so emotionally attached that, they don't want to ever go back into that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not just one. Yeah, it's a complicated question.
Yeah, it is, and it really kind of gets you thinking just more about overarching societal structures and how did we come to this place? I don't from my experience, it wasn't like this. 20 years ago. So.
Well, it's funny. I was listening to Joe Rogan, and Bill Maher was on. They were talking about the dangers of pornography and sort of how pornography is sort of. And that, I think that's the biggest thing for young people is it's sort of, we have this visual expectation of what sex should be.
Absolutely.
And realistically, that's not at all what it is. Like it's a completely.
And today, 80+% of mainstream pornography involves violence.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah. And the impact that is having on relationships and on consent issues. Yeah. Is significant.
Wow.
And it taints our view. There was a workshop years ago around this issue, and just talking about how pornography rewiring our brains and escalating what we need to feel gratified. And it doesn't just kind of like, oh, I like this. It's like you need more and more and more.
Yeah.
And to the point that a lot of young men need Viagra to be able to have sex with their teenage girlfriends because they've watched so much porn that they require just this massive, unrealistic level of arousal. But the cool thing is that goes the other way. So that the way to sort of treat that, if that's you, and that's so many of our young people that are caught in that cycle of addiction, and addiction and mental health go hand in hand, unfortunately. And porn addiction, sex addiction, it's not fun to talk about, but it's a reality. So many, and there's so much shame around it.
Yep.
It just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is, we can get free from it. And again, it's hard, and that's where we need people that we can be real with. It's so critical to have a safe community. And when we have people that we can be held accountability is a huge way of kind of getting free of that. But we can actually sort of starve that part of ourselves and retrain our bodies to come down to kind of a normal level where we can function in a healthy relationship long term and get that part of ourselves healed. It is a tough journey, but that again is something I'm just so passionate about, is just building that kind of a healthy community of authenticity where those kind of relationships are possible. And it's not just about how we come across, but we can deal with these sort of issues because there's so much shame around it. It's just...
Well, and going back to what you said about, 80% of it is violence. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would listen to that and they would think, oh, well, that's not true. Or they would think, well, that's not the porn that I watch. Or that's not what I'm watching at hand. And that's probably because they're so stimulated and they're so used to that being
it's really
normal.
hard. It's hard
and
to break
they don't
out
know
of
what violence is. They don't know. They have no idea, and no one is educating them on that. No one is saying this is what is right and what is wrong, or what is a gray area.
Yeah, it's not talked about.
No, we don't talk about this stuff. It is devastating. And the worst part about that is a large percent of that violent porn is actually happening. It's actually actual abuse that's being filmed. So it's not just being acted out. There's a lot of actual sexual abuse of women taking place that's being filmed and sold as pornography. Like it's such a dark, insidious, awful snare that just traps young people. And it's not just guys. Yeah, there's a lot of young women today that are struggling with porn addiction as well.
So I guess for the students that are watching this, what are some resources that they have at hand here at the college other than yourself and just anywhere they can go in the college to kind of get that education piece and talk to someone about this?
So our counseling and wellness group are just outstanding. They're just such a great group of people. So they would be available as a resource.
What about any mental health services in and within City Kingston?
Yep, there's some mental health lines that are available.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, could you even, barring trauma, could you not go to a hospital and see somebody?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely they can point you in the right direction. I mean, I've got a lot of material in my office.
Yes.
There's a lot of material in the lobby of the counseling services, so you don't even have to kind of go in and make an appointment. You can just walk by and pull on many of their pamphlets that have a lot of these phone numbers and talk lines and help lines and mental health. There's some Ontario ones, some Kingston ones that are available in their office or online.
The point is that somebody's always willing to listen, whether it be face-to-face or over the telephone.
Yeah.
You just really have to take that first step to realize I need to talk to somebody, I want to talk to somebody, and go see them or pick up the phone.
Absolutely, and not feel that you're going to be judged.
Exactly.
Or it's anything that you say is on the table.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the highlight reel, blooper reel. Yeah. Having worked in a counseling capacity for 20 years, everyone struggles. Yeah. Everyone struggles, and the sex thing, just to be specific, everyone has to fight and win that battle. It's a battle for all of us. At every age and every stage, we all have to kind of figure out where that fire belongs in our own lives. So everybody's kind of, I just hate this sense like, oh, I don't struggle. And so that's just one area. But in relationships, in finances, in mental health, we all have those battles. We all have those voices. And it's just that sense that we have to pretend we don't. That makes me crazy because we all have those struggles.
Absolutely.
And so just feeling like you're not alone. And that's part of the problem is I think when those mental health demons start chirping at us, it's like, this is all you. Everyone else is smiling and happy. You're walking around and everybody's got their unicorns and rainbows. You don't see people's pain. You only see your own. And it's just such a myth. We all struggle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I think some of the overarching themes of why that is and why we acknowledge that everybody struggles, but going back to the social media piece, I think that even though as much as far connected as we are, we're more alone than we ever have been before.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think something that struck me is, just to go along with this point, I was in New York City a couple of weeks ago, and there was this homeless lady, and she was sitting on the corner, she's sitting on the ground in Times Square. She held up a sign that said, "Do I matter to anybody?" And she was sitting there on the Friday after New Year's Eve, and there was probably 700,000 people walking around. Not a single person, myself included, stopped to talk to her or to give her a little bit of change or to do anything. But if it just kind of shows you that, you know, you walk right by this person doesn't matter to you, has no bearing on my life. She's not worthy of my time or whatever it was or whatever went through my head or everybody else's head at that point. But it's something that I've thought about in the past couple of weeks. I should have done something. I should have said hi. I should have bought her something. But it really goes to show you that, you know, somebody can sit in Times Square with a sign that says, "Why don't I matter to anybody?" and not a single person stops. And it really kind of is just to show you the barriers and the walls that we still have to break down as society when it comes to talking to people about uncomfortable things. Whether that be poverty, whether it be, you know, sex.
Or just talking.
Anything.
Doesn't
exactly.
you know,
mental health, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just, and it doesn't even have to be a deep conversation at all times, right? Like, you know, I find people that sometimes even struggle to have, you know, small talk.
Absolutely. A lot of
Small talk is
social
tough.
anxiety.
Yeah.
Small talk is tough. What are you supposed to talk about?
Yeah.
The weather?
Yeah.
Like what
That's right.
comes up? What do you talk about, right? No, definitely 100%. You get in that little, you haven't seen somebody in a couple of weeks, say, "Hey, how's it going, man?
Yeah.
How was your holiday? How's the weather? How's school?" Like you hit those 3-4 topics, I'll see you later.
Yeah.
Right? It's just one of those things.
And again, I feel
People are
judged.
weird.
I feel like you're evaluating me. Oh my gosh, I have to say something. We can't have a silent moment. It's all that self-critiquing that goes on top. So you've got this awkward conversation, but then you've got your own inner dialogue that's kind of hollering at you. It's just hard to focus when you've got those voices in your head kind of condemning you. Okay, quick, come up with something. You know, it's sad.
Yeah. It really is. People are weird, eh?
We're
People
kind of funny things. But you know what? We can get better. We can get healthier. And reaching out to each other is how we do it. And actually, can I plug something?
Please.
Yes, please.
So Chaplain Services is working in conjunction. So we have a Christian club on campus called Geneva SLC. And again, we're just really passionate about creating a safe space for people. We have an intern named Catherine who's here on the college almost full time to just help with the Geneva SLC. So she and I are working together. We're also working with Footprints and the SA, and we're going to be offering a free breakfast starting the second week of February on Friday mornings in the pub. And it's not kind of a food grab.
Yeah.
We are wanting to
talk.
We want to talk.
Yeah,
we want students to come in. We want to make eye contact and say, "How are you?" and actually care about the answer. We want to just, like, not a big, heavy every time. We want to build a community. We want to build a safe space for people to come in and sit down and have a cup of coffee, maybe only for 10 minutes, but just to be able to be together and to feel like someone remembers your name or tries really hard to. I'm really struggling. I struggle with names. But I want to learn names. I want it to be a place where we can build authentic community, where people can feel like I belong. I'm not awkward.
Absolutely.
Or if I am, it's okay, because we all are.
You can be yourself. You
Yeah.
can walk in there and have a conversation and enjoy a nice cup of coffee. That
Yeah.
sounds like a great idea. So when are those again?
So it's going to be starting. We're actually just in meetings this week to sort of hammer out details. So you'll be hearing about it. I think we're going to be launching on a Friday morning. Like I say, more details to come.
Awesome.
Keep an ear out on
Keep
that
an ear
one.
out for those.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
We'll make sure to let everyone know. And
Thank you.
yeah, and thank you so much for coming on, Kathy. I
It's
think
been
this was
amazing.
Before we
guys,
let you go, where
awesome.
can somebody find you to use your services?
Yes.
and how they
Great
get a hold of
question, because it has been tricky. A lot of people don't know I'm here, so I appreciate the question. So I work out of the SA, so upstairs and just up the main front stairs. I'm here kind of in the building Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but the best way to reach me is just to email chaplain@sl.on.ca, and I'm very flexible to meet. I meet with some staff members that aren't comfortable to meet me in public. They don't want to be seen with me in public around here, which I understand. And so I'll pick you up at the front door and we'll head off to Tim Hortons or go sit in my van by the water if you don't want to be seen at Tim's with me, which happens. And I get that. So
you just listen.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
great.
Listening is huge.
That's great.
And you know what? That's another thing for students. If you're concerned about your friends, ask a question and wait and listen for the answer. And I think if we learn to listen to each other more, I think that breaks down so much of what we've talked about today that we're working on, and it helps all of us get better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
Well, again, thank you for your time. This has been great. Hopefully we learned some good things of how to combat these when we face them, some relationship issues, and don't be afraid to talk, people. Just, find somebody that you're comfortable with, build that community, and have those difficult conversations, because we're all human and we all need to talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kathy.
It's been a joy. You guys are awesome. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
doing this and talking about the important, real stuff. I love this, that you're here doing this. So thanks so
We
much.
try.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Have a good day.
That was awesome.
Good conversation. Eh?
Yeah, that went on for longer than we planned. But I mean,
it
you
did.
can't cut a conversation like that, right? Like, and again, like going back to the fact that even though that Kathy is the chaplain here, she doesn't push those religious values onto people.
Right.
Even though she has those resources for people, it's just about counseling. It's just about finding
Exactly, and you can tell just from that conversation how open and how lovely she is.
Yeah.
And you can come to her with anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of what she deals with it's not faith based, and
exactly.
It shouldn't be, right?
When you think of a chaplain as being pretty like old school,
Of course.
right? Whereas that was a very that's a conversation in 2020, and that's a conversation that everyone should be having.
Of course. Right?
So we want to thank people to be listening, and we want to encourage you to share this podcast with everyone. Again, you can listen to us on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcast, SoundCloud, YouTube, pretty much everything.
Anything.
So go ahead and share, and again, continue to have these conversations because they're very important, especially with relationships that you're in or just any relationship in general.
Especially
right?
with Valentine's right around the corner.
Yep.
It's
That's
important
right.
to keep these things in mind and just keep yourself safe.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, right?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So thank you, Kathy, for coming on, and thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.